movies from various genres and decades. Stay tuned for this episode. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the MovieNaut. I am joined with Scary Gary and Mr. Bill Camp. This is our Halloween edition. So by the time you see this, it will be close to Halloween. So got some more movies for you to check out. And I'm going to let Scary Gary start the festivities.
Okay, I'm doing movies that I have covered at Scary Gary or Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary. The movies we've shown on there, with one exception that I sort of cheated on, but we'll get to that one later. And so I'm going to start with House on Haunted Hill from 1959. First off, you gotta love William Castle. William Castle's just awesome. For those who don't know, William Castle has something in common with Alfred Hitchcock in that he's in all of his movies, although sometimes his appearance in his movies is a little sloppier than Hitchcock's, a little more blatant. Like he'll describe what his gimmick is for the movie, and all of his movies have some kind of gimmick in the theater. For House on Haunted Hill, it was a Mergo or a Merjo, which they would run a skeleton on a wire through the theater at a certain point in the movie, which wound up becoming a problem because after a while people knew about it and they were bringing slingshots into the theater and trying to hit the skeleton. So the theater stopped doing it because of damage and stuff like that. But another interesting little Hitchcock connection with this particular movie is that it was a independent, low budget horror film, and it did really well at the box office. Well, Hitchcock saw that and he thought, you know what, I could do that too. And that was what prompted him to do Psycho. So without House on Haunted Hill, there might not have been a Psycho. But it's Vincent Price, and he invites a lot of people to this creepy old house for a birthday party for his wife. And she appears to be not into the party. But there were a lot of little side things going on, and I'm not going to give any more away, except that this house is supposed to be a murder house where a lot of people died, and it's supposed to be haunted, and it's a very, very creepy movie. And interestingly enough, in spooky news this week, we just covered the fact that they're doing a remake of it, and the remake's pretty cool because number one, it's going to be a found footage movie, which looks really pretty interesting. And number two, Vincent Price's daughter, Victoria, is actually an executive producer and she's in the movie. So it sounds promising to me. So yeah, House on Haunted Hill, 1959. That's my first movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that one.
Oh yeah.
That's probably William Castle's best, or at least my favorite of his.
Anyway. And actually, Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, said that it's her favorite movie.
Yeah, they used to throw their popcorn boxes, everything at that skeleton when it was going across.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories about that. But yeah, they made a remake of that one already. I think it was 1999.
1999, yeah.
Yeah, what did you think of that one?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's okay. It didn't add anything, really.
No.
But I like that idea of the new one that will be found footage to do something
that one
different.
There's a teaser trailer. There's a teaser trailer that was just released, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it shows the original house, and it looks like it could be interesting.
I do think the one guy that they chose to play Mr. Price in that remake, I thought he was pretty good. I kind of liked him and his character.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, all right. So I'm up.
Yes, sir.
And I'm as one of my favorite horror movie icon characters today. I'm J.D. Vance with just a little bit less eye makeup. Anyway, so my first is an oldie, and some would name Gary's probably gonna correct me on this, but I think it might be one of the first slasher movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know. It's got to be at least one of the first, if it's not the first, anyway.
It's one of the first, yeah. I think it is.
There is a couple of them that come before that?
Black Christmas came first, didn't it? And I
Did it
think
really?
maybe
Because this is
Same year.
The Town That
same
Dreaded
year.
Sundown or something like that might have been before that.
This one's 74. What was
There's
Black
also,
Christmas?
by the way, it's not the first. There's actually a movie, Terror at Red Wolf Inn, that is a cannibal movie. It's a little more lighthearted, but it's like dark humor, and that came just before Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I don't know why nobody ever mentions it when they talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because you've got a family of cannibals. One of the members of the family is a police officer. I mean, come on.
We might have to do a cannibal episode sometime.
Hey,
Actually,
yeah.
I might have some for that.
There you go.
But anyway, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So for the movies that I chose this month, because it is October, I tried to bump it up a little bit and do somewhat newer, at least by my standards, newer movies. My earliest is this first one, 1974. That's for me, that's fairly new. If you've been watching the show, you would know anyway. For those who've been watching. But I was really taken aback by this one. And I say this as a compliment for me anyway. It's not as gory as you would think it is. At least that was my opinion. Because you would really expect it to be really over the top. But it's kind of a lot of the stuff happens off screen with just blood splattering onto characters and stuff. Just barely off screen. And I kind of like that. I kind of like just a little bit left to the imagination. I don't need to see the flesh literally cutting through of chainsaws or anything. But there's a van full of friends who wind up at this house and wind up getting chased by this family of cannibals who basically cut bodies up with chainsaws, right? What else are you going to do for fun out there in middle of nowhere, Texas, right? But it's got iconic characters like Leatherface. If it's not the first, it's at least one of the first slashers. It did start a franchise anyway of a bunch of Texas Chainsaw Massacres, remakes and reboots and all those kinds of things. And I was actually taken aback. It's a lot better than I thought. And I kind of, I kind of cringe a little bit at some of the slasher stuff, but I like this one. I thought this one was very good. More tastefully done than you would think, even though it is pretty gory at times. But it all fit the characters and everything. So it was really good.
And a lot of it is psychological.
Right.
It is.
I actually had a piece of news about that movie in this week's Spooky News, which is it's the 50th anniversary of the movie. It's coming back to theaters in celebration of the 50th anniversary. So if you haven't seen it on the big screen, now's your chance. I like the fact that there are very few truly innocent characters in the movie.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, nobody's you have your there is a survivor. I don't think I'm giving away too much of a thing. I won't say who it is or which character, but and you can kind of tell by the end that she's going to have some serious psychological issues, which is what you would have in that kind of a situation if you're in her situation.
And
I think all the way around, it is very well done.
One thing that I thought was unusual with that movie is they put an infant in peril, and you usually don't see that in horror movies. Even children, they tend not to put in that much peril, but the infant was very much in peril.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things going on about it. It's not an overly complicated plot by any means, but you are wondering who's going to survive and who isn't, and how they're going to survive, and
right.
And some of that ending, I won't give away too much, but that truck driver at the end, that was just kind of a surprise thing there that that at least I wasn't expecting at the end. I thought that was going to end differently when that truck driver stops to get involved. But anyway,
right.
Oh, I'm wrong about the infant. I'm thinking of a different movie. Never mind.
But that's my first one. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's interesting that some of the reboots spell chainsaw differently. This one spells chainsaw as two words, and one of them has it as a hyphen.
Yeah.
One of them has one word now. I always found that humorous, but anyway.
All right. Well,
the one character, I will say this, the one character in Texas Chainsaw that I was really, really, really happy to see go was the gentleman in the wheelchair, because he was just such a jerk.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I would say how he was going to get away if you're in a wheelchair.
I think he was meant to be an annoying character, but boy,
yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that. I was on VHS back in around the mid '80s, and just like you, Bill, I was all the buildup of it being, I thought it was going to be ultra graphic, but
Hmm.
but in a way, it was kind of nice that it wasn't because, like you said, it leaves the imagination. Just
Yeah, at least
let your mind think what.
just a little bit, just enough
Yeah.
to your imagination.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but just enough.
Oh yeah.
They
All
build it
right.
as being super gross though.
They do, yeah.
But that's how they get people in the seats. Or in this case,
Right.
it's mostly a drive-in movie. So that's
I
how
mean,
they
like I
get
say,
cars in the drive-in.
let's not
Oh yeah.
overstate it. There is blood splattering all over the
Yeah.
place a lot in a lot of scenes, but so it's not that it's not gross at all, but I thought it was going to be even a lot grosser than it was, but it really wasn't. It leaves just enough.
All right. Well, my first choice is from 1977, and it's a George Romero movie called Martin. Martin is basically a kid who is very delusional, who thinks he's a vampire, an 84-year-old vampire. The only thing is he doesn't have fangs and he is not very strong. So what he uses to paralyze people is sedation in a syringe, and to get the blood out of people, uses a razor blade right on their wrists. Um, well, he comes to live with his uncle, and his uncle also believes that Martin's a vampire. Now, some say that maybe they both had the same mental illness of delusions, but this one was really good. When I first saw it years and years ago, because I was I had to see all of George Romero's movies up until like I think it was the early '80s, and this one was surprisingly good, and I like how they use for almost almost flashbacks, but was black and white, and it, it's almost like you couldn't tell. I think whether which one was reality, was the black and white reality or was the color reality. And I honestly, after many years, I kind of thought that the black and white was like inside his head type of a thing. What he thought he was, and to say that he's an 84-year-old uh, vampire, which was kind of interesting too. This is one of Romero's lesser known ones. Obviously, we know all of his zombie movies, and but don't not many people know about this one. I was looking it up on YouTube to see if anyone else had ever covered it, and there was this one, I forgot her name, but she's like a vampirist, and she covered it. But other than that, I haven't seen anyone else cover it. It's but if you want to check out some of a non-zombie George Romero movie, this one is a pretty good one to check out.
No, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I admit that's a new one to me too, and I do like George Romero. Did he film that one in Pittsburgh as well? Because
Yes, that was in Pittsburgh, and there is Tom Savini's in it without his trademark mustache.
yeah.
If you look really quickly, you don't notice it, but also George Romero's girlfriend at the time that became his wife, she's in it as well. So they used the same cast of people that are in the Pittsburgh area. So yeah, it's a good one, and it's on YouTube. A very grainy copy, I'll tell you. I got it on Blu-ray, but for some reason my region-free player isn't playing it.
Oh, geez.
So I gotta return it because I was so looking forward to checking out the bonus features and everything. But,
Yeah, that's a bummer.
all right, that's my first choice.
Okay, so we are back to me. And I said one of mine is sort of a cheat. And this is the one that's sort of a cheat. It's another William Castle movie, and I had fully intended to do it for Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary. But here's the thing. We don't have the rights to these movies, so we have to do public domain movies. And I did my research. I came up with the fact that it was public domain, did the whole movie, or did the whole episode, and then uploaded it to YouTube, and YouTube said, nope, that's not public domain, it's copyright, and wouldn't let it run. So then I had to go through, and rather than get rid of some of the bits, which I thought were really good bits, we kept those, and I just added some disclaimers with my remote reporter, DB Lovecraft, doing them, saying, look, this is not the movie we're running, let me talk about the movie we're actually running. But the movie I intended to run was the 1960 William Castle film, 13 Ghosts, which his gimmick for that was you got this ghost viewer. And if you look through there was like a blue lens and a red lens. It was basically a 3D viewer, but instead of one for each eye, you had one was above and one was below, and you could decide which one you wanted to watch it at. And in certain scenes, if you use the blue, you wouldn't see the ghosts, but if you use the red, you would see the ghosts, or vice versa. I think it was the blue, you would see the ghosts. But in any event, that was the gimmick for the movie. But it's actually a fun movie. This family inherits this house, and it's supposedly haunted by a lot of ghosts that the uncle collected. And there's a rumor about some money being in the wall, being hidden in the house somewhere. And there's also one of the little inside joke in there is that Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz, is like the doctor's assistant, the uncle's assistant. And they call her a witch several times in the movie. And the first time you see her, she's got a broom. So I'm sure those were inside jokes. But it's a really fun movie. It's a lot more lighthearted than it is a horror movie so much, although there is some real horror to it. It's just a good movie.
Oh yeah, I actually saw the remake first. Then I got there's a double feature of the 13 Ghosts, which another 13 movie of William Castle's 13 Girls.
Oh, okay.
I didn't particularly like that one, but I think that was a little more exploitation-ish.
I've seen that one too. It is a good one. That was, I think, when he was also doing. I didn't know what the gimmick was though, actually. So thanks for informing me of that one.
Oh yeah, and by the way, you can find those ghost viewers on eBay. They run about $10.
Really?
Now, whether they're the originals or just a reproduction somebody's making, still they're a nice little piece of collectible stuff.
Yeah.
And do they make the like any DVD versions of it or something? Do they have where the ghost viewers would work and you'd see the ghost?
I don't know about that part. I would hope they do, but I don't know about that.
I've always thought they should remake some of those 3D movies, the ones with the red and blue lenses. Just remake them like that, just for the nostalgia. Why not? Instead of having to buy special DVD players and TVs and stuff.
Right.
I think they'd be fine. I'd be fine with that. That'd be really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I should also mention that was also remade as the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
Oh, was it really?
It was, yes. I do remember that. A Cartoon Network special, I believe it was. I did wind up watching that one as well, but your movie there is a lot better, I will say.
Shocking.
If you're a Scooby-Doo fan and you want to check it out, there is a 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo that kind of sort of remakes, pretty loosely, but, somewhat of a remake.
Ruh-roh, Raggy.
Right. Ruh-roh. Anyway. All right, so back to me. Oh, I should also mention that I'm in a special location today. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is very appropriate for a Halloween episode. I think I've mentioned in other episodes that it is my hometown. I'm here for special reasons that I won't get into, but anyway. So that's perfect for a Halloween episode, right?
Yes, it's
Exactly.
And it's
Erie.
not that far from Pittsburgh, for those who know their Pennsylvania geography. About 2 hours north, right there on the lake. So anyway, my second movie is a really good haunted house movie as well. Kind of goes along with 13 Ghosts. The Amityville Horror.
Oh,
I first saw this when I was a kid on television, and it really creeped me out. Um, just a haunted house. There was and okay, the controversy is it might be a true story. And when the book was first released, it was in the nonfiction section, but it has since moved to the fiction section. A lot of people have discounted some of the stories that happened at that house. But some of the people who actually lived it say, actually, this is what really happened. So I don't know. I'm not going to say where I land on that. But if you want to watch it as though it really happened, you can do that. And it's not too far off. Apparently, there was some kind of a vicious murder in there at 3 a.m. And throughout the story in the movie, they keep waking up at 3 a.m. There was strange things happening in the house in Amityville. The house is still standing. They've changed the windows because it had very creepy windows that looked like eyes. I think everybody remembers that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of a
they changed the
legendary
address.
movie at this stage.
They
Um,
changed the address to the house too.
what's that?
They've actually changed the address of the house.
I think they did, and I think
It's
maybe
not
more than
10 Ocean
once.
Avenue anymore, which is what it used to be. I don't know what it is now, but they changed the address.
Yeah, I believe they did. I believe they did more than once, and people who buy it are get a lot of crazy mail and characters coming
Oh,
by
sure.
when they
Oh,
can
sure.
hunt it down to where it is anyway. Because it did become so legendary. So the story is that these murders happened. This kid killed his family, and so another family buys the house at a reduced price because of this, and a lot of creepy things keep happening. There's this thing where flies just gather around a window strangely. Everybody gets sick at one point. I mean, some of these things can also be explained, through natural causes. People do get ill sometimes. Flies do gather in strange places. Um, but they crack down a wall in the basement, and this soothsayer says this might be a gateway to hell. As a uh, key scene. I'm not sure if that one happened in the real life or not, but anyway, it does definitely happens in the movie, and it is a very creepy scene. Um, and one year we were trying to freak my daughter out. So we showed her The Exorcist, we showed her Rosemary's Baby, we showed her Night of the Living Dead. This movie, she said she thought was the scariest of any of the movies that we tried to freak her out with. So, you know, um, there's a lot of really creepy scenes in there. The babysitter gets locked in a closet. And, the little child is the only one who can see this one demon in the house, and there's a lot of great stuff in there that is very creepy and could be explained either through supernatural or non-supernatural means. So you know, and I like movies like that that kind of blur that line.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it might come from me being a professional wrestling fan. That also blurs a lot of lines. But it makes me like other things that blur lines between reality and fiction. So, I kind of like there being a little bit of a folklore behind it. I have never seen any of the sequels, and I know there's about 14, 15, maybe more. I tried to count them one time, and I think I counted somewhere around 14 or 15. Maybe one of you guys know more than that, but
I think it's more like in the 20s,
is in
probably.
the 20s.
You get into some of the weird ones that
I,
just
I
basically
stopped at 3.
Yeah,
that
I've never
basically
seen any of the sequels.
name Amityville and throw something else in it. There are so many.
I know
And
Amityville
they're
in
very
Space came out
loosely
a few years
connected,
ago.
some of them.
What's
Very
that?
good connections. But
Yeah, it's I think they get a little ridiculous. Some of the and I guess some of them are probably remakes as well, retellings of the original tale and things as well as
Oh, yeah.
just
well,
getting
I mean,
ridiculous.
seriously, a lot of them have almost no connection at all to the actual thing. I mean, like one of them is Amityville Karen, and the whole connection to that is that there's this wine that comes from a brewery or a winery in Amityville, and it's got some kind of demonic stuff in it, and everybody turns into these it gets or somebody becomes a monster when she drinks it. Um,
Actually, not
there
a bad concept, but
and you know what? Okay, so I will say this. I read the book before I saw the movie. Now, the book goes into some more detail about folklore in the area and stuff. And
hmm,
some of that winds up being more the background for some of the other movies. It's like it's not really necessarily centered on the house. It's centered on the whole area because there are a lot of weird things that the book goes a little more into than the movie does.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
my problem when I saw the
Okay.
movie was it was not all that accurate to the book, and I was counting on it being, so I had a problem with that. But you
I
know,
actually have a copy of the book that I still have not gotten to, but it's a used copy that I got way a long time ago. And my copy, oh shoot, I should have had. I'm out of town, so I don't have it with me. But my copy actually still says it's a true story, based on a true story. So it is an early edition. I don't think they print that on the newer versions of it anymore.
yeah, I
Probably
had
not.
I read it when it was like new. My
Yeah,
mother's
right.
friend bought a hardcover copy and she read it and then she gave it to me when I was like 15 years old. So yeah.
Hmm. So that's one of my, and like I said, I saw it first when I was a little kid on TV, and I think it was edited for television at the time. And it was a long time in between before I watched it again, and I was actually kind of hesitant to finally watch it again. It was maybe 5 or 10 years ago when I did. When I finally did, I mean, there is more 70s special effects that are might be a little bit cheesy by today, but overall, it's still a pretty creepy story. I thought. I think the movie
Yeah.
still holds up pretty good, even though at least some of the special effects were better than others, but it's still pretty creepy. And so, great haunted house story either way, whether you want to believe the
I,
folklore or not. The priest actually, I think, went to his grave saying what he experienced over there was real. So I don't. I've
Actually,
never.
the priest said he never went there. That's one of
Oh,
the things
really?
that's been debunked. The church never had a priest by that name, and none of the priests there ever went there. So a
embellished it a little bit.
little bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure at any level it was at least embellished for sure. They did admit that. Um,
Now
It's a
there
but some
is,
people say that other owners never experienced anything. One thing I did see was other owners did, and one of them did have one documentary I saw anyway said that they actually did have a uh, uh, a exorcism over there, and then there was no problems after that. So I don't know, but
I
maybe they were trying to make money or get rid of the tourists too. So who knows?
I had a friend who he lived near there, and his one of his friends actually lived in the house. Either they were the next people after the Lutzes, or there was one in between, and absolutely nothing ever happened to them in that house. Perfectly normal. I don't know, but you know what my thought is? It's a fun story anyway. It's spooky. It's
yeah,
fun. Believe it or
I
not,
think it works
it
either
doesn't have
way.
to be true. I mean, most of the movies we talk about aren't true stories, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
right. Oh, there was one sequel recently in the past 5 or so years, Amityville in Space.
Yeah,
And
I did
that
see
was
the ads for
fun.
that one.
I watched 5 minutes of it and I shut it off. It
I
was
thought it was actually a lot of fun, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. It is
I
very low budget, but the premise is actually not terrible and it's fun.
right, yeah,
One of these days, Gary, you'll have to let me know which ones you think are really good, and I might because I do want to explore some of them, but I'm afraid to because I do love that movie so much, and
I
Yeah.
think one
I'm kind
through
of afraid
three
of
are
ruining it for me for
what
myself.
1 through 3 are good. I mean, the first one obviously is the best. Uh, the third one they did it in 3D when that 80s 3D craze. You
Right,
know,
Jaws
uh,
3 and
Mm.
uh, Friday the
right?
13th Part 3 were all 3D movies,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
And by the way, let me mention when you go off of these, some of them that are like completely just very loosely related. There are such movies as Amityville Toilet, and I believe there's an Amityville Bong.
I've heard of that one, believe it or not. Isn't that
I
part of
would.
the Evil Bong series? Because there's an Evil Bong
Yeah,
series where they spoof a bunch of.
maybe I'm thinking of Evil Bong, but yeah,
Yeah,
there
but
could
they
be
do spoof other movies, so there might be an Amityville Evil Bong or something like
yeah.
that. And I did sit through about 15 minutes of one of those one day. But I'm planning to return to one of those Evil Bong movies at some point.
Well, you like your campy movies.
I do actually. I do. I know. Like I've said, I think I've mentioned in episodes before. I like two types of movies. I like ones that are good enough, and I like ones that are bad enough. It's all those movies in between I'm not so sure about.
Right, right. All right. My next one is another one from 1977, from David Cronenberg, Rabid. Uh, this one was a creepy little movie. Basically, this couple, they're riding a motorcycle out in the countryside and get into an accident, and they take the girl to this clinic because she is basically not doing great. So, and this clinic is more for cosmetic type of surgeries, but they did it anyways, and they did some weird kind of surgery on her, and all this when she had a thirst for blood, this little thing underneath her arm, little like a little poker comes out and drains the people of the blood, and it becomes almost like an epidemic thing where they drive the people rabid, and it was a it was a really good movie. I was really surprised when I first saw this, in the '80s when I was renting VHSs left and right. Had to see as many horror movies as I could, um, before and during when I was working at a video store. And this is one of the early ones from Cronenberg, and I, it did get remade, and the remake is not that bad, but I prefer the original because it just had an atmosphere to it. I think the remake was centered more in the city, where this one was like a 50-50 countryside and city. The city was more towards the end of the film. Um, and it was a good one. I mean, it's kind of has a little bit like, like a zombie-ish vibe because everybody's going around, killing. And then, but at the same time, kind of like a vampirish thing because it was draining people's blood, and they will go in turn and drain people's blood. Or that's uh, that's been since since first watching. It's been one of my favorites. And when I got it on Blu-ray, it looks great on Blu-ray. So if you like body horror, this is one of the earlier ones, and really good. So that's my number two.
Okay.
Oh, comes back around to me then. And I'm going to go with a movie called Devil's Partner, and it's from 1960. Don't know if you've ever seen this. It's very much an indie low budget movie for the time period, but it's actually really pretty good. The plot line is that there's this strange old guy who lives in this town, and in the beginning you see him performing a ritual, and then he is dead. And his nephew comes to take over his house or his place, and they're out in the desert. And one of the first things you notice about the nephew is that he never sweats, even though it's really, really hot and everybody else is sweating. But it's a really pretty creepy movie. I mean, a lot of satanic stuff for the time period. And the one thing I will say for certain people who have a problem with that, there was a lot of simulated violence against animals. And if you have a problem with that, then you might want to avoid it. But it is all simulated. In fact, most of it's just in shadows and things. So I don't have a problem with it because it's simulated. If it were real violence against animals, I would have a problem with it. But yeah, it's a fun movie. Very underrated and sort of forgotten, I think.
Which is why we're here.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a friend of mine was asking me about what kind of movies we do here. I said, well, we very rarely touch on what I call the usual suspects. We
Yeah.
try to go deeper into the vaults and find things that don't get a lot of love and that should that and so far of all the movies that we talked about, especially the lesser known ones, you know, some of them qualify. You know, they should have gotten the love, but get overshadowed, of course.
Absolutely. So my next one, it's probably one most people have at least heard of. Uh, I'm jumping all the way up to the late '90s now with the Blair Witch Project,
Oh,
and it's one of those that still I think that still qualifies as a cult movie because it started off, as a student film. It was made for something like $60,000 or something, give or take, and it really took off for a while. And then there started to be this backlash against it for some reason. I'm not sure I really exactly understand where the backlash came from, but in some ways it's because not everybody wound up liking it. But I think it's really excellently done. It also tries to blur those lines between reality and fiction. They're trying to follow this folklore of a Blair times and see them in different ways. I guess you could do that with Amityville Horror too. You can watch it in different ways. And when you watch this one of the cameramen, I've heard like that there's this fan theory that he's like behind all the strange things that keep happening because he's laughing in one scene and rocks moving and things showing up. And so you can watch it that way as well. But I thought it was really creepy and really good. The ending is not totally out of kilter with the whole rest of the story. um I thought it was really good and very well done. I love found footage movies. I am kind of a sucker for that. It's kind of the modern day version of the epistolary story, right? Like Dracula, it's written from news clippings and journals and letters written to different people, right? It's kind of the modern day version of that, and I kind of like that method of storytelling. It's certainly not the first found footage movie. um there's another one that comes about 25 years before it that I will cover one day. Because it's one of my other favorites. But I thought this one was very excellent, well done film.
yeah, that was a good one.
And I did try to watch at least one of the sequels, and I thought that thing stunk. I couldn't stand it.
I actually
Yeah.
liked the first sequel.
The first sequel,
Yes, a lot of people hate it because it's a
yeah.
very, very different film, but I actually enjoyed it.
I kind of wish they would have stuck more with the original, you know, motif of it. I think I would have liked it a lot better. But
I
you can tell it
remember,
definitely had a much bigger budget.
I remember when that came out, and some people literally thought those people really died. And then, oh, probably 6 months after it came out, the girl was in a Burger King commercial, and I'm like, how are you going to explain that one?
Right.
Well, I'm not so gullible to think that they actually died in that thing. I mean, somebody might convince me it was a recreation. I don't even think that was it, but
Well, some
but
of the
certainly not a.
actually some of the initial stuff they had, I think they did a documentary about it that they released before the movie came out, a mock documentary where it showed that yes, this was all found footage, this really did happen, this legend exists. And I think they did such a good job of marketing it that way that a lot of people really bought it.
Yeah, maybe that's why the backlash came from. They felt cheated that it didn't actually happen. But I mean, I
Maybe.
was watching, I knew it didn't actually happen, but I thought it was a
Yeah,
good story anyway.
Oh yeah.
It was something that could happen, sort of, most of it,
maybe.
at the end. But
Yeah.
All right. My next one is called The Legacy. This has Sam Elliott and Catherine Ross. And from what I heard, this was the first. This is where they met. Because I think they're married, I believe. Well, basically, this couple they're from Los Angeles, and they just to get away from it, they go to England, and they rent a motorcycle, and they get run off the road, and it's kind of similar in a way to Rabbit, but they take the people take them to this old Gothic manor, and it's a huge house with an indoor pool and everything. And all of a sudden, guests started arriving. So, and then they kept on saying something about the six. But at first, when I first watched it years ago, I didn't put two and two together. There was 5 people coming in, and they were counting her as the six. It turns out that they're some sort of a satanic coven, and I guess the leader of the coven, he was dying, and he needed to pass on his powers, and so it was slowly, one by one, everybody is getting killed off. And this is the one with Roger Daltrey, and shocker, he played a rock star. And
Big stretch.
Yeah, big stretch. I mean,
casting there, huh?
And this one, I should say, this is from 1979. So, and everybody just has different awful ways of going. One, she was in the pool, and all of a sudden there was like she couldn't get out of the water. She was like trapped underneath, some sort of like kind of being trapped under ice. But there's that, and another one where choked on a turkey bone or a chicken bone, and it's really good. And then at the end, I won't give it away. It's just a really cool ending, and just to see, it just had like a very Gothic, English Gothic horror vibe to it, with 2 American stars.
Speaking my language with that Gothic stuff.
Oh yeah, this is really good. I saw it the first time I saw it in the movie theater. My dad took me to see it. I didn't appreciate it then because I was only 13 years old. So I didn't really appreciate it then. But then later on, renting it better, and I think I may have seen it so far like half a dozen times since its release, and I appreciate it more and more, And the ending has a slight little bit of a shocker as to how the last person reacts to getting the power. Because you would think someone would be like, no, that kind of, they embraced it. And without kind of giving it away of who said it, they said, what are you going to do with your power? Anything I want. So this is a good one to check out. It's one of a lesser known films. I mean, just about everybody that talked about that told them about this movie, they thought, I never heard of it. And then when I watched it the other night and put it up on my 31 Days of Halloween, no one, I never heard of it before. And then someone goes, isn't that where Sam Elliott and Kevin Ross met? And I said, it's possible. So that is my third film.
Okay, well, that brings us back to me. And when my fourth movie, when I had to replace 13 Ghosts in a hurry, I went with Carnival of Souls from 1962. A Carnival of Souls is a really, really creepy movie. The story is perhaps leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's more about the atmosphere, I think, than anything else. It starts with a woman who's been in a car accident and basically wanders out of the wreck and sort of starts wandering around and basically starts a new life. And a lot of really odd things happen around her. And it's just a very, very creepy movie. It's very artistic, which I think maybe why a lot of people don't get it, but it's cool.
I would watch that. I would watch that a double feature, that and Dementia 13.
Yeah, they very much fit together well.
Yeah, those are the two that if I watch one, I have to watch the other. Just kind of nice
I
little
believe
double
Carnival of
feature.
Souls. I believe that also started as a small local film that just blew up into, like
Yeah, I
Night of
think
the
it
Living
did.
Dead kind of a thing,
I think it did. Yeah,
is what I've heard. Yeah, it was
might
it
be
was just
why
supposed to be this
was
locally
that
done. I
might
think it was out west.
that might be why it's in public domain. I think that one was one that was in public domain because at the time you had to put a copyright notice on it, and they forgot to do that.
Right.
And so as soon as it was released, it was in public domain.
Yeah, I think I think you have to renew the public domain. You have to renew your copyright like every 7 or 8 years or something like that, or that
You
used to be
used
the
to
law
have
back
to,
then.
yeah. But
Not
I think
not
I'm
anymore.
pretty sure that one was immediately in public domain because they didn't put the copyright notice in, which was required.
Oh,
And
that,
I think starting in 78, they no longer required that.
that could be. That movie is very influential to a lot of other movies. Some say it is the another influence for Night of the Living Dead.
I
The
can see
Sixth
that.
Sense, it's certainly influenced. It's very influential to a lot of big horror movies that come out later. That's a great one. That might be uh, one of the best small independent movies ever made. I would put it in my top 10 anyway,
It is
top
very,
five.
very good.
But anyway, um, all right. So I seem to have a theme as well that I didn't realize when I put this together. But I'm going with another rumor.
Eh,
This movie actually started with yet another rumor that pretty sure this one isn't true. But just throw it out there. It was an old folklore that when they made the original Nosferatu, that Max Schreck, the actor who played it in the 1922 film in Germany, was a real vampire because his look was just so incredible with those fingernails and the teeth and the ears, just everything they put him through for makeup. Highly unlikely this one's true. But somebody made a movie based on the idea that, hey, what if that was true? And that is Shadow of the Vampire, which came out 1 year after Blair Witch in 2000. Um, it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek comedy as well. That's very, very dry, and you might not be sure if you're supposed to be laughing or not. But you can certainly watch it as a comedy, and I sometimes do because the premise is Max Schreck really is a vampire, and he's biting and killing the other actors in the movie as they're filming Nosferatu back in 1922, and the director doesn't care. He kills one of the other actors. He's like, okay, print it, shoot, let's go to the next scene. It's really kind of crazy. I'm not sure why it never took off. I don't know. Maybe people don't get it or aren't sure if it's comedy or not. I'm not sure if it's comedy or not, but I like it. I really do enjoy that one. So Shadow of the Vampire with supposedly the making of the 1922 Nosferatu. Uh, it's a lot of fun.
I thought that was clever. I thought that was a
Yeah,
really clever premise to do that like that.
yeah. The whole
Yeah.
thing is fairly well done. And it's and just the way, and you hear these stories of these 1920s films. And it does kind of fit some of the real life stories. What was his name? The one comedian actually blew his thumb off doing a trick in one of his movies, and the rest of his career he wears white gloves to hide the fact that he doesn't have a thumb anymore because he blew it off in one of his movies. Um, Cecil B. DeMille. How many actors died during the making of uh, the original Ten Commandments in the silent films? I want to believe it's something like, and that's real. That's not a rumor. There's like 10 or 12 people died during the making of that film. You watch the flood scene, and that's actual people getting washed away in water, and several of them drowned. you know, uh, just some of the things is like, if you asked Lon Chaney to make a movie where he doesn't have any legs, he'd ask you for a bone saw and get to work. I mean, it was, that's the way things were done back then. And
Oh, I know.
only now are we realizing that they actually did use more special effects than we thought. Like it used to be Harold Lloyd, that's the guy who blew his thumb off. That's what I was trying to think
Yeah.
of. There's this famous movie where he's climbing up the side of a building and a clock is breaking. And for many decades, they thought he really was climbing up a building, but it's come out only recently that there was special effects done there with, that we're not even sure how they did because it's so long ago and it looks so real for its time. You didn't think they could do these kinds of things, but anyway,
Exactly.
I mean, it just, if you know silent films, that story of him being a vampire and killing other actors and the director not caring actually is pretty plausible.
Right.
I say there's a line in Blazing Saddles where Gene Wilder says he's killed more men than Cecil B. DeMille. That's what he's referring to, is the
Right.
original Ten Commandments. You know, people did die during some of these filmmakings, and a lot of
Oh,
times they just, let's keep shooting. The show
yeah,
must go on. You know, that circus mentality. Show must go on. So
exactly.
you know, anyway, it works on many levels once again. So I think it's highly recommended and doesn't get nearly enough love as many of the movies that we talk about here. It's Shadow of the Vampire.
All right. Well, my next one is Killer Fish from 1979. This is like two different types of stories in one. You have a heist type, they're jewel thieves at the beginning, and it has Lee Majors in it. And then so that the heat is really on them. The cops are everywhere, so they go, where can we put this? Okay, we have this one little in a dam, and we can just put them with a buoy, so we can find it later on. Well, the leader of the group, played by James Franciscus, unbeknownst to the rest of the people, in Piranha in the dam. So, and I guess he was the only one that knew how to get them out or something. And one by one, everybody's getting eaten by piranha. And it was pretty good. I remember this was one that I saw in the theaters with my father back in the day, and I never remembered the name of the movie until I was like going, I want to see that movie where Lee Majors with Piranha, and I was like, I was trying to figure out what is the name of this movie, and when I found it, I was like, wow. It's more nostalgic for me than a favorite, but it's really cool if you like those where they have the mixed genre of films together in one. You know, if you like that kind of stuff, it's pretty good. And it's another one of those. It's an Italian movie, but with American actors in it. So it's pretty good. I mean, if you like, I mean, it kind of rode the coattails of the original Piranha, and then obviously his Jaws. Of Killer Fish. So that's a good one. Check it out.
Became a big thing after Jaws to have different types of killer fish.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't realize it was this many. And one of my Classic Camps Classic Horror Emporium members I posted about one or two of the knockoffs, and he just kept finding more and more. There's got to be at least 100.
No, there's one called Tentacles, with only actress I remember that was in it, Shelley Winters.
Oh yeah.
And it's about a giant.
That is actually better than some of the others. You should see Mako if you really want to see one that stinks.
And what was the other one?
Like I said, there's got to be 100. Orca was a big one. Orca. Daryl Hannah gets her leg bit off by the giant whale. I might cover that one these days. That's a good one. I actually like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Well, that's my number 4.
Okay, that brings me to the last one. And interestingly, as we're recording this, I haven't shown this one yet, but by the time this goes live, I will have shown it. 1964 is The Last Man on Earth, which Richard Matheson's story. And, there have been several adaptations of I Am Legend. In a lot of ways, this one comes the closest to the actual book. It's basically you've got one guy who's out there, thinks he's the last human alive, and maybe he is. And everybody else has been turned basically into vampires by some kind of disease. and he goes out and hunts them and, tries to protect himself from them. And I'm not going to give any more away because it'll give some of the twists in there, but it's Vincent Price, and it's a really, really interesting film. I'm not sure it's my favorite adaptation, but it is closest to the book.
In my opinion, is it's definitely closest to the book, and I believe that movie also, my opinion at least, is it is another influence to Night of the Living Dead, another movie that heavily
Yeah.
influenced that.
Oh, and I should add that I number one, I don't know why they changed the name of the character, which was odd. They changed the name of the main Robert Neville to Robert Morgan, which was an odd thing. I don't know why they did that. And the other thing is Matheson actually had a lot of work in the writing of the screenplay, but he was not happy with the way they wanted the movie to go, so he had his name removed and they used a pseudonym for it. But yeah, he actually did write a lot of the screenplay.
And a lot of people don't realize he wrote a number of screenplays and episodes of some of those episodic shows back in the day. He
Oh
wrote
yeah.
at least a few of them here and there anyway. He was a very good television movie writer as well as novels. But that is a good one too. Another one of my favorites.
Yes.
All right. Well, my last one. So I think you two especially, and anyone else who's watched a few episodes of this, know that I'm a big fan of Japanese cinema and Japanese culture and things like that. Anyway, mostly from the cinema. It started at least with the cinema. And so this was a real test for it because I had no idea when I went out to see this that this had any connection to anything Japanese at all when I went to see it. And it only was later that it turned out it did. But the movie is Dark Water. And it was originally a novel by Koji Suzuki. And if you don't know that name, you should, because he's also the one who penned the novel The Ring and did all the Ring series. So this was before The Ring. And I saw this and I was like, that is a really good story. It's about this woman who's divorcing her husband. They have one child. She's trying to figure out, her new life, gets a new apartment and this apartment seems to be leaking water from an apartment above. And she goes to investigate it, and there's just water all over the place. She turns off all the faucets. She has a really hard time with the superintendent getting them to fix anything, leaks and everything. And I'll tell you, I can't give away the ending because it is a huge ending, but I will say, get your box of Kleenexes because it is a tearjerker ending. And I should also point out that if you have, like you said, any qualms about animals getting killed, there are children who are in severe danger, and because one of the things too is the daughter, the little girl, actually has a ghost friend who's another little girl about her age, and you kind of find out about her story and why she's a ghost and haunting that. And all that's a big part of the story. But Koji Suzuki did the novel, and he had something to do with the Japanese version of the film, which I have not yet seen, but it's definitely on my list. I really want to see the Japanese version of this as well, and the Japanese version of The Ring. And then he also penned The Ring. Ringu is its Japanese title, and the Japanese film version of that later became the American version of this. But if you're a fan of the Ring stories and you want to see what else the makers did, because I think the movie makers here in America also are the same ones from The Ring as well. If you want to see what else they did, you should really check this one out. Very creepy story. But like I said, that ending is a real tearjerker. Keep the box of Kleenexes handy. But I thought it was an excellent story. Really, the whole story is kind of depressing, to be honest with you. But so keep the box of Kleenexes handy through the whole thing. But it's a really well done story, in my opinion. The ending comes out of nowhere for me, anyway. But highly recommended.
I think I've seen that. I think I have.
Yeah, it came out in 2005.
Okay, I did see that one. Yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
one. I don't
And I wanted to
remember
see it in
too much
theater, but I
about
never
it.
did. I'm sorry?
I didn't remember too much about it. I think some other things were kind of overshadowing it for me, but
It might have.
yeah,
It's a quiet film. It's not one that you hear a lot about, and I think we probably should. It's a very very deep story. A lot of rain in it because it's dark water, But it's a very touching story all the way around, and I thought it was well done. And I was like, and after I saw it, I'm like, this has Japanese connections. Is there something ingrained in me that's touched my soul from Japan somehow? I don't know. Why do I like Japanese stuff? I have no idea. But I had no idea this had any connection. And I watched it and I was like, this is really good. And I looked up some stuff about it. I'm like, this is a Japanese author. It was originally a Japanese movie. Now I got to hunt down. And the Japanese version is available on Tubi, by the way, or at least it was a couple months ago when I last checked. But I do need to check that out, and I have not yet. But I want to.
All right. Well, my last one, I jumped up a decade to 1989, and it's called Nightmare Beach. This is from Umberto Lenzi. This is probably his most mainstream film because it's a basic the tail end of the slasher craze. Obviously, it's all taking place at a beach down in Florida, and people are just getting killed. And it just had like a kind of a surprise almost, and had a little supernatural thing going on with it. At least what we perceived that it was is a guy that wears a motorcycle helmet, and I guess they couldn't afford a cool enough mask, so motorcycle helmet, and people thought it was the person that a prisoner that was executed, and it just had a little twist at the end of who it really was, and there's some pretty good kill scenes in it, and I found out about this by pure accident. I thought I was ordering another movie, and then when this one came in, it was a completely different one, and I was bummed that it wasn't the original one. But then when I watched it, I was like, okay, this works. I'll take it. And since then, I don't even remember the name of the other one that I was looking for, but that one was taking place in like a campground. This one is possible. Like I said, it's the most mainstream of Umberto's catalog. Because his usually is very kind of Euro-centric, and this one, I guess, just to sell it to the American audience, he had to go with something real, a basic slasher. It doesn't
Some people
bring
call it
any
Euro trash, but you didn't hear that from me. But I do like those movies, actually.
Yeah,
I say that with lovingly. There are.
And it doesn't bring anything new to the table, but it's just kind of a fun. If you into slashers and you've seen, like I said, the usual suspects of everybody, all the slasher movies, and want something, I'll say new. This is something to check out because again, it should get some more love because it's done well, at least I think. And that's my final.
And you actually brought up another point that I should have made about Dark Water. There's another movie that came out around the same time called Dark Waters, plural, singular. It's a totally different movie.
Talk about confusing.
And I have actually once watched that, thinking I was going to watch that. I did the same thing you did.
Right.
It's not a bad movie, but this is a Dark Water, singular. It's a very serious movie. That one's a little cheesy. It's still a fun movie, but it's about crocodiles in the bayou and killing people and stuff, and it's a totally different movie, but still not bad to watch. Maybe we'll cover that another day. But Dark Water, singular, is the one with Japanese connections that I was covering today. So you made me think of that happened to me once with one of the movies I just covered, ironically.
Well, we finished up another episode. We've got 15 movies for everyone out there to watch for Halloween and beyond. You don't just have to watch these movies on Halloween. We are the types that we watch horror movies year round. We just celebrate it more in October.
As I always say, we're the spooky tribe.
Yeah,
that's right. Like I say, I try to get a little more serious over this time of year, whereas I do more of the goofy stuff most of the rest of the month.
Right. So this should be coming out around Halloween. So I hope everybody enjoys it. I don't know if I've ever asked people, the audience, before. What are your 5 favorite random cult horror movies that you like to watch around Halloween time? And put them down in the comments, and that way, something cult, not just the regular stuff that everybody always watches, but it's just like a hidden gem, something. Maybe see if you can stump one of us and pull out a movie that we never heard of. Because
and who knows? Maybe we'll hunt it down and find it and watch it and cover it.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe.
All right. Well, again, I was joined by Scary Gary and Bill Camp, and
Classic
my name
Camp.
is Classic Camp. And we'll see you in the next one.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Thank you very much for watching this episode. And stay tuned for the next one.